my the platform the policy points is a federal jobs guarantee. And what's that going to do? It would make the federal government a or the employer of last resort. It would make it so that anyone who wants a job can have a job. We have so much work that needs to be done in this country, um, from crumbling infrastructure, fixing our roads or bridges. Our schools are falling apart. There's all sorts of stuff that needs to get done. And we have a lot of people who need work and need good union wages, and a job that pays at least $20 an hour, and so on and so forth. And it seems to me to be the most natural thing in the world that we would pair these two things together. Um, the need of work and the need for work to be done, um, to solve the problem of poverty. The same is true for the other issues that we have. We have the issue of, uh, you know, it's hard to, when you're going to work, especially as a mother or a parent in general, to have childcare, right? Childcare is extremely expensive. I remember when I first had to pay for childcare for my son. I was appalled by how much it cost, and um, I used to also be a subsidized child care uh, case manager. I don't know if you've heard of CCIS before, but I worked for CCIS in North Philadelphia, where I helped, um, you know, mothers generally get subsidized childcare for their children. And you know, this is a major problem. This is a major impediment to being able to work for many people. If you can't get childcare, and at an affordable price, then you can't take that job, right? And so, uh, the point of this campaign is to stop acting like we have to just follow the standard Democratic lines of affordability, or whatever the catchphrase of the day is, and actually address things head on, and take seriously um, the problems that we have, right? And actually come up with plans for every single one of the problems that we have, and to address them, and not just say fluff catchphrases that don't actually mean anything. So hopefully that answered your question.
Hey, I'm curious. You mentioned the abundance of work that needs to be done, the jobs that should be filled. I'm wondering where you think that gap is. Why is that not currently happening? Where does that opportunity to get people in those positions?
Well, it's just because we haven't. No one's ever thought to do this, I guess. And so there's a thing that the Federal Reserve does. Um, uh, it's in order to they try to make it so that there's always a little bit of unemployment, right? An amount of unemployment. And the reason that they do this is to, they say, stave off inflation. Because if there's too many people who have a job, then they believe that there will be high inflation. Now, um, what that means is we follow that to its logical conclusion is that our policy is to keep some people poor, right? So that other people don't have to, so that other people don't have to pay slightly higher prices for whatever. So that's insanity. I think a lot of people would be comfortable, um, paying a few cents more if the problem of crime has been eliminated because everyone has a job, right? Or I think that people would be feel just fine. And there's another thing, right? Like the amount of inflation that they're attempting to stave off is in the order of like 1%, right? So this seems to be a unfair bargain. If you are keeping, large swaths of people unemployed, for, due to Fed policy, um, then I think that that's just immoral. So I believe that we need to shoot for full employment and forego this nonsensical policy of keeping poverty, you know, just so that we can stave off theoretical inflation. So hopefully that answers your question as well. Anything else? A related question came in an email. Why hasn't anyone ever talked about ending poverty? Why hasn't anyone ever talked about ending poverty? Because a lot of people believe that poverty is a natural thing and that it's just supposed to be there, and that um, it's it isn't made. And one thing that is not true is that poverty is natural and that it's just something that is supposed to happen given the machinations of the economy. In fact, poverty is a thing that is created out of policy, and we can uncreate it as well, right? By just changing our policy. I talked a little bit about how the Fed contributes to, um, you know, unemployment, but uh, there's also, and by the Fed, I mean the Federal Reserve. Um, but there are also other poverty policies that we have that contribute to poverty and crime and all of these sorts of things. So people don't talk about ending poverty because a lot of people just hold the belief that it's just a natural thing and it's just supposed to exist. Um, the the fallacy of that, or we can see right through this if we just look at all of the things that we know contribute to the sustaining of poverty and things like crime. So, for example, we had the war on drugs, and we had um, the policies of mass incarceration, and we had the policies of um, you know things like this. All of those things contributed to taking bodies out of the economy, right, and putting them into prisons, and um, that made poverty, right? That was an intentional divestment from one area, and uh, by divestment, I mean you're not investing in that area. You're extracting from that area any investment, essentially. You're taking away any investment from the area. And in the cases of mass incarceration and policies that like go towards like heavily criminalizing people, those policies um, take able-bodied people out of the neighborhood, out of the economy, and drain that neighborhood and drain the local economy of resources, thus creating poverty, right? So if we just follow it to its logical conclusion, that means that those policies have created the problem. And not only have they created the problem, they exacerbate the problem, they compound the problem, they make the problem even worse uh, than it was before. And we could just not do that, right? We don't have to um, have these sorts of policies that are divesting from people, and that is what all of my policies are about. They're about investing in people, making sure that we just make the right choice now instead of making the politically convenient choice. Um, and the thing that I think is, I'll leave it there because it all goes into you know I could talk for hours about this particular thing, but I want to give some more time for other questions. Anything else?
Hey, cool. You hear me?
Yes, I can. How
So
are you? How are
I'm
you?
I'm not in District 3. I'm in the district over, but
Okay,
I agree with a lot of the stuff that you have on your page, and I wanted to talk
awesome.
to you a little bit about it. And first off, how can we help you outside of just like donating? Because I would love
Sure.
to help out if I can.
Yeah, sure. So we have lots of volunteers, and we would love more. I think last I checked, we had about 1,300 people who signed up to volunteer. So if you would like to join our volunteer group, I would love that. And we have a Discord group where a lot of the volunteers, not all of them, but a lot of the volunteers have joined, and we talk about the things that will help the campaign in there. So we have phone banking that is available. We have coming up. We're going to be uh, trying to get on the ballot. The first day to begin getting signatures for getting on the ballot will be on the 17th of February. So we're going to need some people to help get us on the ballot to collect those signatures. And yeah, there's lots of other ways like sharing social media posts and all sorts of things like that. Because one thing about political content, especially on the social media platforms that are now owned almost exclusively by conservative people, is that they're going to start suppressing the political content that you know is against them, or it isn't quite aligned with them. So any sharing with your friends or followers on those various platforms would help tremendously as well.
Great, sounds fantastic. Love to be part of that. But also, so you're talking about kind of like public sector ways of raising impoverished people, giving them opportunities to like, have families live in areas and just develop, the economy through that direction. I'm wondering why you think, um, obviously, like when you talk about the war on drugs and just kind of growing up in Philadelphia during that time period and how a lot of these poverty issues have not really been solved and maybe aren't even that much better in a lot of cases.
Hmm.
Um, why a lot of the approach, obviously from the right, tends to be, more incarceration, but also from Democrats, it seems sometimes you get victories in terms of more, public sector ways of dealing with it, like the Affordable Care Act, which is
Hmm.
really in some ways like not the most massive like helping hand, although it has helped a lot
Right.
of people. How come a lot of their messaging just comes down to protecting things that already exist rather than expanding upon programs that we could be
Yeah.
creating?
So, uh, so the question is, why why do Democrats not ever try to expand upon the social safety net instead of what they currently do? Um, so FDR, after the Great Depression, had the New Deal, and the New Deal was, the set of uh, social policies and social safety net policies that ended up after that, after its implementation, it created the wealthiest period in American history for about 20 years. So the time period that everybody looks back fondly upon, when the middle class was, thriving, and people had the nice suburban homes, and everybody was, living well, or a lot of people were living well. The time when the middle class actually existed as a you know a thriving entity was due to the New Deal policies. Now, then Reagan comes, and he has his revolution, the Reagan Revolution, and basically his ideology just won, right? And his ideology was a wholesale rejection of the New Deal policy. Somehow he convinced, and I know how, and I'll explain in a second. Somehow he convinced everybody that the New Deal policies um, actually were a bad thing, and that instead now we should be focusing all of our attention on tax cuts for the rich, and you know, uh, focusing on pure capitalist ideology. Now, the reason for this is because the reason there was this rejection of the New Deal policies, even though the New Deal policies were the things that created all this prosperity, is because right before Reagan we had the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement, created a lot of anxiety amongst white Americans, and the anxiety of we had all of the assassinations, and there were um, you know lots of unrest and uproar during that time. So people were um, were primed to want to run away from whatever uh, they were told was causing this, right? Even though the policies were not what was causing it, but this is what they were told. So he exploited people's anxieties. The Democrats then just said, "Oh, is this the way to win? All right, well, we're just going to follow along in this pattern." And so then we get, someone like Clinton, who is basically just a Republican light, and he just followed in Reagan's footsteps, and he was like the completion of Reagan. Like he was Reagan at Reaganism at its highest form. He ends up being the one who gets rid of welfare as we know it, right? And so what we end up believing as gospel is that programs that help people are the enemy, just because the Reagan Revolution made it seem to be the case, and a lot of Democrats have not been brave enough to want to tackle um, the perception that social programs can help everybody, and we don't have to, follow the same old. I don't know, was it 40 years now? 40-year-old ideas of you know leaving people out to dry, and only focusing on businesses is the way to go. So yeah. Um, yes, Helen. Um, so first, Nick, did that answer your question? And then I'll go to
Yeah,
Helen. Okay,
yeah, it did. I mean, I don't know. I can expand on the question a little more, I guess, if Helen's not. I don't know if
okay,
she's raising her hand or not,
sure.
but I just the one other thing I'm wondering about is it kind of seems like at times that it is in the best interest if you're trying to kind of weed out these programs to not put the best effort into like the actual process of carrying out things like Social Security and Medicare and all these processes, to kind of then vilify them as the issue. Is there do you, I mean, I don't work in government. I don't know. Is there a difference in the work that's being done at that level nowadays? I guess in terms of like focus and actual effort being given to make these programs work the way they should.
Oh, well, what I would say is that for all of the social safety net policies, except for maybe Social Security, um, but particularly things like welfare, like the things that we traditionally think of as welfare programs, like TANF, which is the cash, food stamps, all of these sorts of things. The subsidized childcare program that I worked for. Um, especially in a lot of times, the federal government will give like a block grant to a state, just a lump sum of money, and say, "Here, you handle the how you disperse the funds." And then the states, which usually have Republican legislatures, are going to say, are going to put all their restrictions and punitive sort of policies in place and say, well, um, basically they will try to make the programs fail and not be successful, and then they'll say, see, look, I told you, when you give people these things, they end up not helping when intentionally they put in so many barriers to actually being able to use them that they can never work. So um, I think at the federal level, we probably should rethink how we administer these programs. Also, if we look at something like the Affordable Care Act, like um, it was kind of at its inception, it was kind of a good idea, especially when we had like the public option. But then it got watered down so much that it ended up being not a great fit for a lot of people. And Republicans, a lot of times, they just want to put in so many barriers that they doom the program to failure. Um, and so, I think Democrats need to just fight back against these sorts of things. If you say, okay, we want to give everybody, um, I don't know, a stake, right? Um, and the Republicans say, okay, fine, we can give everybody a stake, but let's put like 50 maggots in them. We have to say no, no, we're not going to do that, right? Because the point of them wanting to do that is to make it seem like what we're giving them is trash. So, um, you know, uh, uh, Democrats have to be a little bit stronger in pushing back against uh, the the poison pills that Republicans put into the policies. So yeah, Helen, do you have any?
Oh, one of the things I really would like to know about, number one, I have a question for you. Will you be taking APAC money?
Absolutely not. No.
And another thing is, when are the Democrats or anybody really going to talk about the real issue of everything is just plain outright racism?
Yeah, a lot of the things that we see with like especially MAGA is a result of racism.
It's not
And
even really mega. Some of the Democrats is
mm,
racism with them.
mm,
And they don't want to admit it, but it's racism.
yeah, so America is like squeamish about race, and I don't think we have to be squeamish about race. Um, you know, I alluded to some of this and when I was talking about Reagan and Nixon, and someone like Bill Clinton, they
Yes.
exploited the the anxieties that people have surrounding race, um, and this
And
is
I
this
think
is
it should
effective.
be,
Mhm.
yeah. And one of the things that they don't seem to understand, I guess, because a lot of people are just plain stupid, but there was never any program, food stamps, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that wasn't created for Black people.
Oh,
That was created for white people. Black people just happened to be able to get into it, and they had a hard time getting into it when they did get it.
well, I think I was so that goes back to like the New Deal programs I was talking about. So the New Deal, well, I think it was a great set of policies. You know, and actually, all of this actually kind of ties together, right? And I'll tie it all together. Um, the we always in this country seem to make compromises with the conservatives, um, and those compromises are always to the detriment of whoever the conservatives don't like. So let me this will be a little long-winded, but bear with me. When the country was first founded, um, we we had slaves, right, in the colonies. When the founders were about to sign the Constitution, or like ratify the Constitution, the slave-holding colonies said, well, we're not going to ratify it unless you put in place some things that make it so that we can keep our slaves, right?
Mm.
So the original founders, a lot of the founders, especially the ones in the North, did not want to have slavery. They thought it was evil, all these things. But in order to have the Union, and in order to have the economic might that they thought that they would need, they compromised with the conservatives of their day, who were also racist, and they put in a set of policies that ended up being racist, and gave a structural advantage to the conservatives and people who were racist. And so I'll give you a couple examples: the Electoral College, and
Yes.
also giving only two senators to each state. Now, why does that help the conservatives? That's because a place like Wyoming, which might have like four people in it, not literally, but like it's just very few people, they end up having as much power as a place like New York City, New York State, for example. That has way more people. So they put in a lot of the structural things to ensure that the conservative people of their day would continue to have power.
And
Now,
chose a
all of those,
racist president.
and they chose a race. But there's so many different things.
George Washington health slaves. He's racist.
Oh yeah, George Washington. He had a slave that escaped to I think it was France, and then he tried to chase them down and all of that. But
Yes.
so that was one reason. But a lot of this, all of the racist stuff, I want to keep in mind that all of it is about economic power. It's like racism is just a tool to keep economic power. It's not necessarily about the racism itself. It's just a tool. So then later we have after the Civil War, um, who was it? Andrew Johnson, and he, you know, made a compromise that ended the that he ended the what do you call it? Why am I blanking on this?
Reconstruction.
Reconstruction. There we go. The end of Reconstruction. And so, uh, that was another compromise. Then we get to the New Deal. I'm skipping a lot of stuff. Then we get to the New
Yes,
Deal.
you are skipping a whole lot of history.
Yeah, but
You're skipping plenty of history.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
but let's. So then we get to
I
the
might
New
be
Deal.
probably be the oldest person on here. Okay, because I'm 74.
Oh,
My
okay. Cool.
father fought in World War II,
Oh
and he was
wow.
in that racist army,
Oh wow.
and wasn't able to get the benefits that others um, soldiers had gotten when they got out, that the white soldiers got. They wasn't able to get the home loans and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
So
extremely.
and I came up through the 60s when it was opening through that civil rights era.
Mhm.
And when we were finally getting uh more federal jobs, because a
Mhm.
lot of the people who I went to school with, we got federal jobs. We were
Mhm.
able to get federal jobs at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was going to talk about what happened after the New Deal and how, or not after, but during the New Deal, right? So in the New Deal, we then get the idea for all these social programs. But again, there were compromises that said, well, we'll only the compromises with the conservative races. We will only adopt these policies if you put in some more poison pills, like at the time, black people worked as domestics. They worked as farmers. So, and they worked as like waiters, wait staff, this sort of things. And so those the conservatives said, okay, we'll accept it if you leave out domestic work, waiting, servant work, and farm work. all the things that black people were doing.
Black people did,
From
yes.
if you leave out the minimum wage requirements, right? And so to this day, uh, farmer people who do farm work do not have a minimum, do not get the minimum wage. Wait, waiters, wait staff do not get the minimum wage. Right, this is the reason why they can get $2 an hour for pay up until this day. Um, and so that's another example of these compromises. And so, uh, and then there's so many more, right? Later on, what you were just talking about, the home loans, all of these things were uh, ex- excluded black people from uh, these programs. Now, what I would say is that every time America has an opportunity to do the right thing, move into the right direction, we're given a choice. We can say, um, we're going to apply it to everyone without exception, or we're going to compromise with the people who obviously don't want to help everybody. And historically, we've always made that compromise. I say this time, we don't make that compromise. We put our foot down and say this time we're going to be serious about making sure that all people are taken care of, and we're not going to keep shooting ourselves in the foot just because some conservatives just want to keep their economic status, protect their economic status by using racism for political means or political gain. um, okay, I have a question in the chat. How do you feel about police brutality right now? What do you plan on doing about it? Okay. So, uh, police brutality has always been a problem, especially in places where uh, people don't have the means to make a fuss, right? So, like if you're in the ghetto, for example, and they know you can't get a lawyer to defend yourself. Um, then that's always going to be a risk. I think that police should be held. We should have an ability to hold police accountable, and this will dovetail into the issue that we're having with ICE as well. Um, Law enforcement should be held at a higher standard than anybody uh, in society, because what we're doing is giving them the means to take a life. And if we're giving them the means to potentially take a life, then that should be, um, you know, one of the most um, one of the most seriously taken endeavors that a person should ever take, right? And so it's almost a sacred responsibility. And so um, we shouldn't be giving them the ability to go without accountability, um, because how could that ever turn out well, right? Like, if for any industry, if you can't hold the people who are bad actors accountable, then uh, obviously they're going to act bad, right? There will be no incentive for them not to. So what we have to do is ensure that we actually hold them accountable. How do we hold police accountable? How do we hold ICE accountable, for that matter? Um, they're two separate entities, so I'll address each. So for police, um, on a national level, what we have to do is um, take reports of police brutality seriously. Number one, uh, I've had encounters with the police as a teenager where I've experienced police brutality. What I did after that encounter was call internal affairs, and they did absolutely nothing. They didn't care, right? Um, and so we need to have a database of those people who consistently get reported as abusers, right? And if we have a database of those people who were consistently reported as an abuser, a brutal officer, then they should not be hired, right? Um, into another police department, because right now, a lot of times, if you have an officer who is a troublemaker in one district, they can go to another district and you know continue their abuse. So that's one. Then for ICE, um, not technically law enforcement, they're immigration enforcement, and there is a distinction because um, they are not enforcing criminal laws because immigration is not a criminal. The immigration offenses are not criminal offenses; they're civil offenses. So anyway, for them, we all have to ensure that they are not wearing masks. We have to ensure that they can be prosecuted under, that we're not afraid to actually do these things as well, right? Like a lot of um, the local municipalities and state governments, they're actually afraid of actually arresting ICE officers. Um, so they might say that they'll do it, but I'll believe it when I see it because they have plenty of opportunity to do it, and they have the legal justification to do it, but they've yet to arrest any ICE officers for the crimes that they've committed. So um, we have to make it clear on the federal level that if an ICE officer is brutalizing people, then we have to hold them accountable by arresting them and charging them with the crime that they have committed. So that is my answer for those. Other question is, all of my other questions are about your changes to housing in Philadelphia. If elected, I'm a campaign director here in Philly, so I make okay money, and I struggle with housing. Still struggle with housing. Yeah, I opened up one PA here in Philadelphia, where we worked on housing campaigns with Helen Jim, Isaiah Thomas, Kendra Brooks. Before elected, they seem to have ran their campaign on housing, but I've not seen any changes since. Okay. Um, so the I mean, I think they're going to have. I'm not making any excuses for them because I actually don't know them at, at all. But what I'll say is that at the city council level, we're going to have a little less um, leeway to make the kind of changes that are uh, needed in in terms of housing. Now, of course, there are things that they can do with respect to zoning and all of that. But on the federal level, what we could do, from Congress perspective, is provide more funding to build more houses because the problem, uh, the reason why housing is unaffordable is because there isn't enough of it oftentimes. That's one of the reasons. Other reasons are things like you know corporations buying up single family homes and raising the prices and these sorts of things, and so those are things that we can address. Also want to make you know it easier to buy a home, right? So having a $50,000 first time home buyer grant, I think, would go a long way. This isn't really something that council would be able to do, but it was something that you could do at the national level. And so I think that on a federal level, there's more opportunity to be able to make things better. But I think that for the people that you mentioned, I think that they need to be pushed to be reminded of what they ran on, um, because there are some things that they can do, right? Especially zoning, because Philly has some strange zoning laws that impede the the efficient use of space and the efficient use of you know or the efficient mm, building of housing. There's all sorts of things. So, any other questions?
Yeah, I think you partially answered my question, so that's why I just unmuted. I was in the chat, but
Okay. Great.
so it seems like your answer was that you plan on changing the zoning and also providing funding. Providing funding, so that is basically going to help like people who have, I guess low income housing, Section 8, different things like that. But somebody like me who actually has a job with okay income, I'm not eligible for anything like that.
Mhm.
So with the cost of housing being, I mean, for a 4 bedroom, they want like almost $3,000 right now in Philadelphia. Even when you
For
make good money,
for
that's
rent.
hard to afford.
Is that you're saying to rent?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, so zoning is a thing that would happen at the local level. So that would be something that council is going to have to handle. But for at the federal level, if I were your congressman, then what I could do is provide funding in terms of not just for building, I mean not just for like low income housing like Section 8 and these sorts of things, but also I will be fighting to provide first time home buyers with $50,000 in home buying grant, right? So that's it. So if you want to buy a house, you need money for a down payment or closing cost, then we should be giving people who are buying their first home $50,000 to do that. Right. This is a very similar thing to what happened in the 50s. The federal government did essentially the same thing, not exactly, but essentially the same thing. And that is what created the suburbs. Um, so we can do the same thing, something similar, by providing people with grants to buy their homes. Next, for renters, yes, uh, it costs a lot of money to move into a new place, and we should do something similar to provide the means to help people get into their rental properties. Um, so that means expanding eligibility where uh, before we had like too stingy of parameters around who gets eligible for things. And once again, that is because Republicans in the state legislatures are always saying, well, if we're going to, once they get the block grant to, you know, provide the subsidies, they then put so many um, guardrails around it that it ends up not helping anybody. So um, we have to, instead of giving states block grants, we just have to administer the federal government would have to administer the program themselves. And to give you an example of the difference, um, something like TANF is, if you know what TANF is, that's cash assistance for people who need it. TANF will get is a block grant. So like the federal government gives states a bunch of, not a bunch of money, but a set of money, and then the states will decide how they disperse it amongst people. If you do that, then of course, if you have a Republican legislature, then they're going to make it so that nobody qualifies for it. A, a alternative way to do things is how we handle Social Security. States don't handle Social Security, and that has the highest rating among the social programs than any other. And that's because the federal government just handles it. And we don't let states meddle in it and make it so that it's ruined by this Republican legislature. So we have to, for the things that we know aren't addressing people's needs, we have to just administer those programs manually at the federal level, I'd say. How do you plan on educating the public about government and their powers? Um, so I plan on continuing to do these sorts of town halls um, throughout the campaign and also after the campaign, right? Like, once elected, I'll continue to do this. Um, and, hopefully that helps people understand how, excuse me, government and government works and the powers. Also, I make TikToks and reels and things like that. So hopefully that also will allow people to uh, learn a little bit about these sorts of things as well. So I'd say these sorts of meetings plus social media. Anything else, guys? Do you think it's worth implementing in the school? Oh, that would be fantastic. Um, so the question is, do you think it's worth implementing in the school system? Teaching it will be essentially civics. Um, and yeah, absolutely. I think that would be fantastic. You know, whenever we talk about implementing things in schools, schooling is handled at the local level. So the federal government doesn't have much say in what kind of curriculum a local school district gets to adopt. But there are incentives that the federal government can you know apply and say, if you do this, you'll get some more money. So you can't force it, but you can steer. Um, what would end up happening though is a lot of like southern states, they're very wary of the federal government interfering with their education system, and so southern and conservative states. So what would end up happening is that we'd have like a two sets of education systems. One where um, the people are educated about civics, and then the other where people are intentionally left to not learn about civics, and that would make for um, an interesting society, I think, but unfortunately so. All right. Anything else? I can. I still got time to answer questions. These are great questions, by the way. I appreciate you guys coming here and asking me these things.
Hi, Mr. Carter.
Hello.
I was thinking of pursuing like politics when I get older because I like think it's like a really important thing, like obviously like you're doing. And there has to
Awesome.
be like only for it to work, there has to be like more people to vote for with the like same
Oh
mindset.
yeah,
So how do you
absolutely.
think is like what do you think is a good background for like
Mm.
getting into there?
Oh, I don't think that you need to have a particular background. I think um, anyone can. And the other thing is that politics, especially in our system, is meant to be for everyday people. It's gotten to the like that was the original design of the system. At least, let's say, the House of Representatives and like local governments. Um, to just give a little bit of a background, like the idea of the House of Representatives is called the People's House, and it's supposed to be made up of representatives of the people. Then we have the Senate. The Senate was supposed to be made up of uh, like the wealthy people. That is the intentional design of the system. So they're supposed to be like the older, supposedly wiser and wealthier landowners, um, the aristocrats. But for the U.S. House, that's supposed to be for regular people. And so, um, yeah, I think that anybody should be able to run for Congress, and especially any position in the local level. Now, we have some serious problems about how uh, we finance campaigns that make it almost impossible for everybody to run. So um, it costs a whole lot of money to run for Congress, um, and especially if you're doing it like the traditional way. Um, you know, when you're first running for Congress, you're told that you need to get all the wealthiest people that you know and ask them to donate the maximum amount of money that they are legally allowed to donate. And only if you can do, if you can do that and get like $200,000 within the first month, then you will be seen as viable, right? Um, because congressional campaigns are going to run upwards of 500 to $1 million. I don't know anybody who can donate $7,000 to our campaign, right? How about you donate that to my rent, right? And uh, so there are impediments. This campaign is a I'm attempting to do something that other campaigns aren't, and um, they're all doing it the traditional way of getting all of the big money from their rich friends. I'm trying to do it grassroots fundraising, which is instead of going getting funding from wealthy people, I'm getting funding from people who believe in the message, right? It's just everyday people who donate to this campaign. And so while we have much less money than anybody, the top candidates in this race, much less money than they have. We were able to accomplish um, much more than they have so far, and I'll tell you why. So because we're focused on grassroots support. We mean grassroots, or I mean grassroots in multiple ways. The first, so far we have had over, I think it's like 1,200 individuals donate to the campaign so far. Out of everybody in this race, I think I'm pretty sure from the last I checked, that is more donations, individual donations, than anybody else in the race. Okay, and that's because they have, while they have more money, we have more people. Okay, that I think what that means is that uh, our policies actually resonate with the people. And then secondarily, we have over 1,300 volunteers, and when you put these two things together, that means that we can accomplish more than the campaigns that are doing it the traditional way. Um, and so I think there's a way, or I'm at least trying to prove out that there is a way to get into politics while being a regular person and not going getting money from corporations, getting money from rich people route. Um, uh, you know, so far I'm happy with what we're able to accomplish so far. Um, we'll see what happens in May, but I feel good about our prospects, because the number of people that we have on our side. So I would say have any background, but be do understand that it's going to cost some money, and hopefully, if this campaign wins, you'll have this model to look back to and apply to your campaign.
All right. Thank you. That was good information.
All right, thank you. Yes, too many lawyers. Absolutely, too many lawyers. Yeah. I mean, and there are practical reasons why. Number one, if you're a lawyer generally, especially like the Ivy League trained lawyers that they generally tend to be, um, you have money and you have networks and you have connections, and it's kind of natural to have a profession that deals with law while you make the laws. But what ends up happening is that the law it ends up being filled with like legalese and not exactly accessible to everyday people. So that is a downside of the lawyers as well. Why did you choose Congress instead of city council or something to get your name out first? Because um, I don't think that um, I don't think that the things that I want to address can be addressed in city council. I think that the things that I want to address um, are addressable by being in Congress, and um, you know that's basically it. Anything else? I know
I
we're a little bit over, but I can stay a few more minutes. Absolutely.
I got one more. It's kind of a niche questions, but
Sure.
just because you said your website says you have a background in AI,
Mhm.
and just in those systems, there's a lot of investment around the country in data centers being built, and I imagine that to some extent in other areas of Pennsylvania, this is happening too. I spent some time in the middle of West Virginia where, land is being, taken from people effectively to build these data centers, and it's
Oh
it's
wow.
hurting a lot of working people down there as well. What legislation, because I really you don't hear any discussion about this at all, I think, outside just like we need to do it, um, can be done to kind of smoothly create this transition of properly building AI systems in a way that don't hurt working people.
Oh yeah. So the AI center thing is a big problem. Number one, while I do work in AI, how do I say this? AI is not so important that it justifies disruption of anybody's life in any way. It is not so useful that it would justify like an eminent domain takeover of someone's land to build an AI center. That doesn't make any sense. Um, the effect on GDP has been basically zero, meaning the value that we have gotten from AI cannot be measured in the economy. It has not uh, increased our GDP. It has propped up the stock market artificially, um, and dangerously, because now we are relying almost solely on the tech companies to keep the stock market afloat. But as far as actual productivity and increased output, it has had zero effect in the three years has it been so far that it has existed. It's fun to use, can help, it can be helpful in certain ways, but it is not something so important that we need to say, okay, we're gonna you know put people in danger, because these things are using up lots of electricity. They end up increasing the bills of the residents wherever the towns where they're put. They increase pollution. um, this is not a reasonable bargain. And even if it were a you know it, it were increasing GDP, it still wouldn't be a reasonable bargain, because the uh, pollution issue hasn't been addressed. Uh, the electrical extraction thing hasn't been addressed. So what I would say is we absolutely need legislation to um, ensure that they're not being built where people are. Right? If they must be built, go build it where no one lives. We have plenty of millions of acres of land uh, that are not useful for living on, and they're not necessarily national parks or something like that. They're just like barren places. Let's go put it somewhere in the desert if we must have it. Uh, Next, we need to apply environmental regulations to these countries that are companies that are building these centers. The current administration is not a fan of regulation, so they're not going to care if they are polluting the river or the air or whatever. But hopefully in the next session we'll have Democrats in that will be able to um, hold the EPA and other agencies accountable. Next, what's the other thing? The eminent domain thing is a thing that's handled at the local level, and that would have to happen like where people are taking the properties of people in order to build these things. That's something that at the local level they'll have to address. Um, but yeah, that would be my answer. AI is not that important that it needs to um, affect anyone's life, and if it is affecting people's life, then we're doing something wrong. Oh, the last thing is right now, Republican or AI companies are having uh, legislatures in the states ban any AI regulation. Like, so they're putting laws into place
Yeah,
to ban legislation against or to ban regulation against AI companies. So we have to uh, override that at the federal level and say, of course you can regulate AI because why wouldn't you be able to regulate AI? That's insane. So that's the last thing I say about that.
yeah. The state of West Virginia put in a law that says local municipalities can't do anything about it, so they've just been
Yeah,
kind of going
yeah,
crazy with
but
it.
municipalities and states have a responsibility to ensure that these companies can't just run wild, especially with things like facial recognition, um, the way that they handle people's personally identifiable information, and of course you can regulate AI companies. That's just absurd. So,
Thank you.
yep, sure. All right. If there are no other questions, then we can end it here. But if there are, I can still stay for a couple more minutes. Uh, I'll just wait. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone who came here today and participated. I had a great time answering your questions, and I look forward to seeing you again. And yeah, I like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Have a wonderful day. No political comparisons between parties in this introductory position to establish the party agenda. Could you expand on that? Michael, I don't think I understand. Is this a question? Um, if there are any, oh, one thing I'll say is that if there are any other questions, you can feel free to email me, and I'll put my email address here. And I usually try to get back within like 2 days. Um, so yeah, just feel free to email me, Michael. I didn't get what that was, but please feel free to email me anything further, or you can just get off mute here and ask me, and I'll answer as well. Okay. Well, thank you all, and see you later. All right. Bye. Talk about uh, talk about what the vision is that I have for Philadelphia and for the country, and also to answer any questions that you all may have about those policies, about any concerns that you may have inside of your neighborhood or for what's going on in the country today, because we know we have lots of